All right, let's get started. If you're watching the recording, I want to welcome you. In a few minutes, I'm going to share my screen with you. Today, I'm going to be doing a presentation on fears, overcoming fears of solo travel. So let me get the ball rolling by sharing my screen with you. I hope you can all see that. I want to welcome you to Empowering Women Over 45, Overcoming the Fears of Solo Travel. You know, the very first time I traveled to a foreign country, it was many, many years ago, back in the mid 90s. And even though I didn't go there by myself, I was still very scared. My kids were with me. I was supposed to get married. It was like, completely an experience that I wasn't expecting at all because I felt shocked. I was in culture shock. I went to Mexico and I had a difficult time being there, mostly because I didn't know the language and, I wasn't used to being that far away. And so it wasn't the best of experiences, let me tell you. Now, my name is Linda G. Robert. I am your Back in the Groove Again coach and travel consultant with Travel Only. I'm here to help you live your best life now and to help you transform your life with traveling. I'm really excited to share this content with you because it's something that I've dreamt of doing for a very long time, of traveling on my own, and now I've done it quite a few times and I've experienced it. I know the value of it. I know how transformative it is, and I want to be able to share that with you, and of course encourage you to consider doing it as well. When I walked the Del Norte in Spain, many of my friends asked me if I was scared of going that far on my own. And they asked me if I got lonely. And I said no to them. But what they don't know is that when I used to travel many, many, many years ago, I was afraid. I was afraid of traveling many, many years ago. And even if I traveled on my own many years ago, I was still really afraid. Now, of course, back then, way back when, I also relied on my friends. I was hoping my friends would come with me, and some of them did some of the times, but I couldn't always rely on my friends, and I couldn't always wait until my friends were able to travel with me. So I started to slowly start adventuring in the solo travel world. The very, very first time I went away for a week, though, I went to an all-inclusive, and traveling solo there had some advantages, of course. I was able to come and go as I please and go on any excursion without having to check with my friend or not. But there were also some disadvantages as well, like being around couples all the time. And that wasn't always fun. I have since gotten used to being around couples. But when you travel solo, you certainly learn that there's a lot of solo travelers out there. And you can tell them apart because they're sitting by themselves, or they might be sitting with other travelers, but not seemingly be related to one another. And I'm going to talk more about my different experiences next week when I talk about taking it slow and starting with short trips. So today, I want to talk more about one of the most important things that stop women from traveling solo, and that's fear. That's fear. A lot of women in midlife and beyond are afraid to travel on their own, and for many different reasons. Maybe they're used to traveling with their spouses, or maybe they're used to traveling with their friends, or maybe they've had some really bad experiences on some trips, and or maybe they just don't know where they could go and feel comfortable in traveling on their own. And although I can't address all of these fears, I will provide some tips to alleviate some of the anxiety that may be associated with traveling. And of course, I'll open it up at the end of the program and tell you a little bit more about my 3-month program as well. All right, so let's keep going. Solo traveling can evoke many fears, different types of fears, particularly around uh, among women that are over 45. Three common fears include safety concerns and loneliness and isolation and worries about health and well-being. So safety concerns may involve fear of theft and harassment or traveling to unfamiliar environments alone. Loneliness and isolation can stem from the prospect of being without companionship or support during the trip. Worries about health and well-being may also involve concerns about medical emergencies or access to healthcare while traveling. And those fears are normal, they're valid, and this, like participating in this webinar, is one of the first steps that you can take towards addressing and overcoming these types of fears. And of course, I'm going to suggest working with a travel coach as well. That could also help you to prepare yourself for the trip that you want to take on your own. So let's talk about safety first. I think it's best to be safe while traveling rather than avoid traveling altogether. So you want to be safe while traveling instead of forgetting it altogether. A lot of my friends say, I could never do that. I can never do that. Well, of course, if you allow the fears to stop you from experiencing the pleasure of traveling, you're going to miss out on a lot. So oftentimes it's a big monster in our minds made up of stories maybe our friends have heard, or maybe they're stories that our parents have told us, or maybe they're stories that we've made up, or maybe they're stories that we've heard from the TV programs or on the news and stuff like that. So definitely it's best to do your research first. Absolutely. You want to do some research. And I was just sharing on a live that I did earlier today that I did what I could when I went to Costa Rica. I did what I could to research where I was going. I had the destinations in mind. There were 3 or 4 different locations in Costa Rica that I was going. And I had booked my accommodations as well. But there were things that I couldn't find. And so I did the best I could to do the research ahead of time. And the rest I had to kind of let it go. And I found out that when I got there, there were a lot of those answers that I had that were answered. The questions that I had, I should say, that were answered. I was able to find shuttle services, for example, in between the towns. When I left before, I didn't know that that was available. So you also want to enhance safety while traveling. Of course, it's paramount. So here are, a few practical tips for you, including, of course, researching the destinations and researching the accommodations beforehand to assess the safety ratings and to read the reviews. You want to read the reviews in terms of the destinations. You want to read the reviews in terms of the accommodations that you're getting. And I would suggest you do that, all the time. You might hear that noise. I'm in Mexico. So you want to research destinations. You can also go to your country's travel advice and advisories by destination site. And I've added the link to the Canadian site here. Now, while you're traveling, you may also consider using different types of things that will help you as well. And I've showed a couple of pictures here. I'm just going to name a few of them here. An anti-theft bag, for example, that's equipped with features that are slash resistant, with material that's slash resistant, locking zippers, some RFID blocking pockets to protect the belongings from theft, and unauthorized scanning of credit cards or passports. You can also use a money belt or a pouch that is attached around your waist. It hides the cash, it hides the credit cards and other important documents underneath the clothing, minimizing the risk of pickpocketing or theft. Another great idea is a dummy wallet. Now, a dummy wallet would carry a small amount of cash and some expired credit cards. So what a great idea to save your credit cards and to use them in a dummy wallet or a purse that you would have. But in that purse, you're not carrying the real documents. You're carrying fake documents, for example, and that you could easily hand over in case there's a mugging of some sort. Of course, that diverts the attention away from your real valuables. Now, most hotels also have safes, and depending on where you're traveling, um, when you're staying, you may also consider bringing a portable safe to add some security. You can put your valuables in that portable safe, or you can put your electronics and your jewelry in that portable safe. And of course, if the accommodations have a safe, you can also put them in there. And when you're walking around, you've got your money belt, or you've got your hidden pouch where you might have a little bit of money, right? As opposed to carrying all, your belongings with you, your documents, I should say, and your money. You may also consider using travel locks to secure luggage zippers and compartments. I know when I traveled to Spain, I locked my suitcase, and so that was something easy to do. You just put a lock on the suitcase, and that way you know that it's going to be um, safe while you're traveling. There's also, and I never tried this, but a door alarm that you can easily attach to a hotel door or window to alert you of unauthorized entry or tampering. Now, I tend to not wear jewelry when I travel. I'm very simple. I don't wear a lot of jewelry in general, but you may think or consider using fake jewelry, costume jewelry, and accessories while traveling to avoid drawing attention to those valuable items. Alternatively, least expensive, you might leave your expensive jewelry at home and just wear simple, understated pieces of jewelry instead of the costume jewelry like I was sharing. And of course, this is really, really important. You always want to have some insurance of some sort, whether it's insurance that covers theft or loss of belongings or emergency medical emergency expenses and so on. That provides you with, that relief, that financial protection if something ever happens, and the peace of mind too, in case something happens. So most of the time, nothing is going to happen, which is what prevents people from even considering getting insurance. But I've heard of a lot of interesting stories lately that would deter anybody from not getting some insurance. Other things that you can do to feel safe include practical situational awareness and trusting your instincts while exploring new environments. That's really very important. So this means being alert, being observant, assessing the environment for any signs of danger or suspicious activity, and adjusting your behaviors accordingly. So trust your instinct. That means really listening to what your gut is saying, really paying attention to any warnings that you might get or any red flags that might arise in any given situation. So here's an example. Imagine a solo female traveler exploring a really busy market in a foreign city. And as she makes her way through the crowded streets, she maintains that awareness by staying attentive to her surroundings, really paying attention to what's happening around her, keeping her belongings secure and avoiding isolated, of course, or poorly lit areas. And suddenly, she sees a group of individuals behaving kind of aggressively nearby, causing her instincts to alert herself, right, to a potential threat. So what is she going to do? Well, she's going to trust her intuition, of course, and she's going to immediately change directions and move away from the area to ensure that she's safe, of course. You also want to talk to other women who have traveled to the destination that you're going to, and this can offer some inspiration and some encouragement as well. All right, so let's move on to talk a little bit about loneliness and isolation. Now, you might go through a bout of loneliness and isolation while traveling because, of course, it's normal that you're going to miss your friends. You might miss your husband. You might miss your kids. It's normal for that to happen. But you also want to consider that solo traveling does does seem to embrace the connection to other people in different ways, and I'll explain in a minute how I connected in just a few minutes here. Engaging with local communities through cultural activities. You can volunteer. You could travel solo to a different country to volunteer. You can also have a homestay. So, for example, if you want to learn Spanish, I'm in Mexico right now, but what I did last year, I had like a homestay. I was staying in a very, very large house to learn Spanish. I was taking Spanish for about a week, and that meant that I wasn't alone. I also had other people that spoke English, but I tell you, the mom, Magdalena is her name, she spoke Spanish, and that forced me to speak Spanish. So you might consider it homestay, and that can foster also that type of connection. You also want to consider maybe traveling with a group. Now, there are some companies like G Adventures and Exodus and Exotica, for example, that do offer some smaller group travels. What I like about G Adventures and Exodus is that they have groups that are, up to 16. I think with Exotica, it's up to 30 people. But one thing that I want to share with you is when I went to the Del Norte. So I walked the Del Norte mostly on my own, and I can't give you a percentage. I would say 80% of the time I was walking alone and there was nobody around me. But it just so happened that the company that I booked with, which was Galley Wonders, they booked me in a hotel that was also close to a alberghetti or a hostel. So when I was at that hotel, I went downstairs to notice that where I could eat. And of course, you can see these pictures here. The first one was in one of the albergues. I can't remember exactly where it was because I did walk for 30 days and I went to so many different cities. But I noticed that, wow, this was also a hostel, and I was able to eat with a lot of other people too. So depending on the experience you want, you can actually connect with other people, and it was great. Now, the last picture shows me with another lady. This was in oh man, I wish I could remember the name of the place. I can't remember the name of the place right now. But I stayed at something like an Airbnb, a bed and breakfast, I should say. It was something like that. And this lady was there by herself. Her husband, her elderly husband, owned the house. She only spoke Spanish. Now, she spoke a little bit of French, and I speak French too. So we were able to communicate a little bit in French, but I tried my best to speak in Spanish. And so she was such a lovely lady. Oh my goodness. It was an awesome experience. So you see, depending on where you go, sometimes booking through Airbnbs or bed and breakfasts also give you that experience of being connected to someone else. And one of the advantages of solo travel is that you can embrace it as an opportunity for self-discovery. Now, just to go back, I mentioned some guided tours, right? So you might be traveling most of it on your own, but then you can also find that there are some tours that are happening in that location. And so why not join some of those walking tours or food tours? That way you can connect with other like-minded individuals and you can share that experience and even share phone numbers or share numbers on WhatsApp because I communicate with people through WhatsApp. So keeping in mind that when you're going through this experience, yes, you might go through a period of loneliness, but don't forget there's always video calls, right? You can use the technology to stay connected with loved ones through video calls, social media. When I went to Spain, I posted all my photos on Facebook, and that way my friends knew, where I was at. I posted a lot of videos on my YouTube channel. I had my friends, comment on some of my videos, and that helped me also to maintain that sense of connection and support as well to some of my friends that were kind of missing out on the experience that I was going through. Now, let's talk about health and well-being. So prioritizing health and well-being while traveling solo is essential for a fulfilling and enjoyable journey. So practical tips include packing a well-stocked travel health kit with essential medications, of course. You'll need your meds. You'll need some essential first aid supplies. And I mentioned essential because it really does depend on where you're going. I had a full first aid kit when I first was planning my trip to go to the Del Norte, but it didn't. It fit in my suitcase, but my suitcase was way too big when I was leaving the airport in Sudbury, so I kind of got rid of a couple of things, including the first aid kit, and I removed the band-aids. I knew I would need band-aids, but I also learned that there were pharmacies everywhere, right? So I had some band-aids, and depending on where you go, um, you will find some pharmacies that are really close by. One thing that I suggest, though, as well, that you want to have your emergency contacts on you. You want to also tell your friends and family where you're going. You want to provide them with an itinerary, the flight numbers, the times when the flights are leaving, and a list of accommodations if you're going to be traveling every day. Of course, I'm referring to my experience with the Del Norte. Even when I didn't travel every day, I would still give my friends a list of where I was going and the flights and all that stuff. But when I did travel every day, like with the Del Norte, they knew when I was leaving. I was going on a cruise. They knew when I was going to get to Spain. They knew the accommodations that I had every day because I sent them that. I had received the itinerary, of course, with Galley Wonders. So that really was helpful as well. Now, you also want to research local healthcare options and carrying the necessary medical information and documents that will ensure that you are ready in case there is a medical emergency. Now, I mentioned this sign here. I noticed it everywhere when I was in Spain and when I went to other places in Europe as well. So that's the pharmacy. And of course, I had to go to the pharmacy a couple of times. I was looking for Vaseline. I went to the pharmacy for that. I wanted to get some vitamin C. I picked up some vitamin C in Spain as well. They have everything you need. You just have to know that you might need to know some of the languages, and I'll speak a little bit about that in just a few minutes. Now, I also suggest that you practice some self-care techniques, such as mindfulness meditation, that if you're going to be walking, of course, you want to start exercising, you want to start practicing now if you're planning on going to the Del Norte or any other type of walk. You want to make sure that when you are there, that you're also exercising, that you are getting some adequate rest. Because after all, sometimes walking all day can be very, very tiring. So you'll need your energy to walk all day. And even though you might not be going on a Camino, a lot of people love walking when they're traveling. So you want to sleep well so that you can enjoy your day the next day. And that'll really help you enjoy your experience as well. One more thing that I can say is that I want to empower you to take ownership of your health and to take ownership of your well-being during your solo travel journeys. And the importance of self-care, I can't underrate, I can't understate that. It's so important to take care of yourself even when you're traveling, of course. And finally, when it comes to this, I also encourage you to learn some basic vocabulary. Now, you'll need some vocabulary to ask for directions, right? ¿Dónde es this place? ¿Dónde es el baño? Now, this is in Spanish, of course, but if you're going to Japan, some basic vocabulary for asking for directions, to ask for your food, to ask for help if you need it. Ayuda, por favor. That's in Spanish. So I know the basic. I can speak in Spanish a little bit. I do speak French. So when I was in France, of course, I was able to speak French. Of course, the more short phrases that you know when you go to a country that is not an English-speaking country or even a French-speaking country, if you speak French, the more you'll feel more comfortable. So I hope that these tips were helpful to you. I went through, this fairly quickly here. We talked about, some of the fears and how to prevent some of those fears, how to feel connected to Oh, just to go back to the connection, you may also consider joining some Facebook groups. There's a lot of Facebook groups for women that want to travel, of course, as well. There's a lot of Facebook groups on the Camino, for example. I found quite a few of them. And when it comes to the language itself, I'm on Duolingo. I'm learning Spanish through Duolingo. Now I did go to Oaxaca last year and the year before. That helped me a little bit as well. But the Duolingo simple app, I'm not paying for it, and I'm learning some, simple words. So that's really important. All right. Well, thank you for spending time with me today. And of course, for information on my services, do go to my website. You'll see my website here. And of course, next week, you'll be invited to for my free training next week, which is on empowering women taking the first steps towards solo traveling. I'm also really, really excited to share with you my newest coaching program, Embrace the Change. It's a 3-month coaching program to transform your life through travel. It's designed to blend coaching with a transformative travel experience. So essentially, we'll be doing about 4 weeks of coaching, preparing you for a trip, and then there'll be a 4-week gap, which is when you'll be taking your trip. And then there'll be another 4 weeks after that, so we can do some debriefing and some action planning as well. Now, as part of that 3-month coaching is a 1-session wellness odyssey that we'll have together so that we can talk a little bit more about your trip and the kind of trip that you would love to go on. So for more information on that, do go to my website at lindagrobert.com, embrace-the-change. Thank you so much. And of course, if you do have any questions, I am here to help you with that. I really appreciate you being here. Take care. Have a great day. If you're listening to this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this through another channel, add your questions below and I will answer your questions. Take care. Bye-bye.